안녕하십니까? 오늘 국제사회서비스 프로젝트 제2차 포럼의 사회를 맡게 된 이용주입니다. 반갑습니다. 오늘 포럼은 코로나19 감염 예방을 위해서 한국사회복지협의회 공식 유튜브 채널 나눔 채널 공감에서 실시간으로 진행합니다. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the second International Project on Social Service Seminar. I'm your host, Youngju Lee. Today's seminar is streaming live through the official YouTube channel of Korean National Council on Social Welfare, 나눔 채널 공감, to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Today's seminar is the international project on social service promoted by Korean National Council on Social Welfare and is an international forum designed to link the sustainable development goals and social issues to examine current problems and the implication. 지금 유튜브를 통해 보고 계시는 여러분들은 실시간 채팅을 통해서 참여 가능하십니다. 질문과 오늘 주제에 대한 다양한 의견을 채팅창에 남겨주시면 답변해 드릴 예정입니다. 여러분들 많은 참여 부탁드립니다. 사전 참가 신청을 하신 분들께는 시원한 스타벅스 음료 기프티콘을 받으실 수 있도록 꼭 채팅창에 채팅을 참여 부탁드립니다. 오늘 진행되는 포럼은 한국사회복지협의회가 추진하는 국제사회서비스 프로젝트의 일환으로 지속가능 개발 목표와 사회 이슈를 연결하여 현안과 시사점을 짚어보는 SDGs 국제 포럼입니다. 오늘 포럼은 사회적 포용과 복지를 위한 ICT의 역할을 주제로 진행합니다. ICT 기술과 사회서비스의 융합을 통해 포스트 코로나 시대의 사회 문제 해결 방안을 논의하는 자리가 되리라 기대하고 있습니다. 이번 국제 포럼은 총 4회에 걸쳐 개최하고 있습니다. 그중 두 번째로 개최하는 오늘 포럼은 코로나19 상황에 따라 언택트 유튜브 중계로 진행됩니다. 향후 코로나 상황에 따라 오프라인 행사도 개최 예정이오니 여러분들 많은 관심 부탁드립니다. 그럼 포럼을 시작하기 전에 국제사회복지협의 회장이자 한국사회복지회장이신 서상목 회장님의 개회사가 있겠습니다.
안녕하세요. 한국사회복지협의회 회장 서상목입니다. 오늘 국제사회서비스 프로젝트 2차 포럼에 참석해 주신 여러분 정말 반갑습니다. 국제사회복지협의회와 한국사회복지협의회가 공동으로 주최하는 오늘 포럼은 사회적 포용과 복지를 위한 ICT의 역할을 주제로 진행을 합니다. 이번 포럼은 ICT 기술과 사회서비스의 연결로 SDG, 지속가능 개발 목표죠. 달성에 기여함은 물론이고 사회복지 서비스 분야의 디지털 뉴딜 이슈를 선도함으로써 국제사회에서 한국 사회 서비스의 위상을 높이는 데 그 목적이 있습니다. 포럼 내용으로는 먼저 포용적 복지를 위한 ICT의 역할과 또 국제적 이슈를 살펴보고 이어서 해외 여러 나라의 그 ICT 활용 사례를 국내외 전문가들의 발표로 진행할 예정입니다. 이번 포럼이 보다 많은 사회복지 현장과 또 정책 분야에서 ICT와 사회서비스를 연결해서 활용할 수 있도록 하는 정보 교류의 장이 되기를 기대합니다. 한국사회복지협의회는 코로나19가 가져온 변화들에 빠르게 대응하기 위한 국제 이슈를 선도하고자 국제사회복지협의회 등 국제기구와 협력해서 국제협력 사업을 추진하고 있습니다. 오늘 9월에는 아프리카 지역의 그 푸드 시큐리티 문제, 그리고 11월에는 포스트 코로나 시대의 사회 안전망을 주제로 해서 그 두 번의 국제 포럼을 현재 준비하고 있습니다. 향후 개최되는 포럼에서 여러분들의 많은 관심을 부탁드립니다. 이번 포럼의 주제 발표와 토론을 통해서 많은 정보를 얻어 가시기를 바랍니다. 다시 한번 오늘 포럼에 참석해 주신 여러분들께 진심으로 감사드리고 항상 건강하시기를 기원하겠습니다. 감사합니다.
다음으로는 스페인 국립원격대학교 리카르도 마이랄 우손 총장님의 축사가 있겠습니다.
Dear President of the International Council of Social Welfare, former Minister of Labor, Mr. Su, dear speakers, dear members of the ICTW, dear colleagues, experts, and participants from all over the world, it is a true privilege to have been invited to be here with you to formally open this event as Rector of UNED, the National University of Distance Education. Having well over 300 students across the world, we are proud to say that we are leading the way in distance education, which has become, by the way, a strategic need with the COVID-19 pandemic. It is certain that we are living pretty hard times. We are living an exceptional moment in history due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which has made the whole world reconsider ideas and practices with respect to the quality and practicality of higher education. However adverse and tough times might be, I feel that it's crucial, more than ever, to maintain our understanding role in education and research through innovative education projects targeting to the development of new learning models and research programs adjusted to the changing and flexible needs of the 21st century society. And as a matter of fact, no doubt, this conference is a good example of what I am referring to. Precisely the key issues to be covered in today's conference, such as the challenges of digitalization for social welfare, or good practices in different countries, are issues which UNED is a fundamental element of, not only through its research, but also through its key social function with teaching centers in Guinea and Mexico, and among many in other countries. In addition, technological innovation is at the core of our institution. As a matter of fact, we are leading a very ambitious technological transformation project. But moreover, our university has a very strong international vocation. And in 2021, because of the COVID-19 crisis, we have become even more aware of our global position. As the virus taught us all, we are just part of the same world. Therefore, we have learned that it's important that our collaborations will not only be Eurocentric, but also rooted in a global mission. Because I always believe that cooperation is a key concept, and we have the responsibility not only to share our knowledge, results, and good practices among ourselves, but also to cooperate with those who might need to nourish from our knowledge and expertise. And of course, we should not leave aside our commitment to the fulfillment of the Agenda 20 and 30, and consequently the Sustainable Development Goals. Remember that not only the health of our universities, but also the health of the planet depends upon them. Precisely in connection with this, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that the Sustainable Development Goal number 17 underlines the importance of partnership. And we are, and have always been, extremely willing to collaborate with NGOs, and thus it is an honor to cooperate with the International Council of Social Welfare, which focuses on promoting social welfare globally. Mr. President, we really look forward to a long and prosperous collaboration in training programs, seminar, and research activities like the one that concerns us here today. The ongoing pandemic has pushed us all to innovate, probably more rapidly than we would have otherwise. I feel that universities, at least my university, will be a key actor to restore trust in society by a strong value orientation, integrity, and ethics. Sincerely, I am confident that the aims of this conference will be fully achieved, and I would like to thank everyone who has worked untiringly to make it possible. And of course, all the speakers and moderators who will show many fruitful paths for thinking about the issues that will lead us to improve and enhance our society. Mr. President, I want you to feel our university like yours from now on, and our determined commitment to fight fair for the interests of science and society. Let me just conclude may you all continue basking in the light of both knowledge and wisdom, and may all institutions and researchers here involved continue evolving, continue growing and evolving in the good direction, always together. This is in fact one of my ambitions in our university. Let me just conclude by just wishing you a very successful and fruitful event. Thank you very much for your invitation.
그럼 지금부터 국제사회서비스 프로젝트 SDGs 2차 포럼 사회적 포용과 복지를 위한 ICT의 역할을 시작하겠습니다. 첫 번째 세션은 포용적 복지를 위한 ICT의 역할과 이슈를 소주제로 총 5분이 발표하십니다. 첫 번째 순서로 세르게이 젤레네브 국제사회복지협의회 UN 대표부에서 발표하시겠습니다. 세대 간 측면에서의 디지털 포용 촉진에 대한 말씀입니다. 다음으로는 샤이메 마르쿠엘로 스페인 자르고자 대학교 교수님께서 디지털 사회의 사회복지 및 포용, 감시, 데이터 자본주의 및 코비드-19를 주제로 발표하시겠습니다. 세 번째 발표입니다. 안드레안 아길레라 미국 UC 버클리 대학교 사회복지학 박사님이 디지털 정신건강 개입의 형평성과 다양성 도모를 주제로 발표하시겠습니다. 다음 발표로는 호아킨 카스텔로 데 메사 스페인 말라가 대학교 교수님의 발표가 있겠는데요. 발표 주제는 디지털 사회사업, 디지털 미디어를 현장과 연구에 통합할 수 있는 전략입니다. 세션 1의 마지막 발표입니다. 탄 응티용 싱가포르 대학교 사회과학대학 교수님께서 온라인 사회복지교육의 미래를 위한 접근 및 전략을 주제로 발표하시겠습니다.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So my presentation today, I hope that everyone sees that. My presentation today is about intergenerational aspects of promoting digital inclusion. First of all, let me introduce myself again. For those who do not know me, my name is Sergey Zelenev, and I'm the special representative of ICSW to the United Nations. I am very pleased to be here today and to greet you all at this virtual seminar, which is in many ways a continuation of our work started in February when we organized the side event at the UN in the context of the 59th session, which President Su already mentioned, and I'm not going to discuss it more. But this event, this conference today, is a follow-up to this event, and it is probably a little bit more than that. It's an attempt to explore new frontiers of analysis, highlighting some crucial issues for policymakers and civil society. So my presentation today focuses on social impact of digital inclusion and intergenerational solidarity. It has particular significance in the context of sustainable development efforts. Moving to an economy primarily based upon information technology and digital connectivity creates a sophisticated digital environment. We need to explore how these new opportunities could be harnessed for promoting social inclusion of older and younger cohorts, actually for the population at large, avoiding pitfalls and strengthening intergenerational links. After all, intergenerational equity and partnership among generations could be seen as a backbone of sustainable development of human community, which is ensuring bonding between individuals and cementing social cohesion. So enormous social impact of digitalization is visible with the naked eye in many areas. Social inclusion is no exception. It is obvious that the quest for social inclusion is one of the most important policy goals on the policy agendas of many countries, reflecting a pledge of the international community to leave no one behind. Leaving no one behind is actually about social inclusion, as we all understand. And ever since the French scholar and politician René Lenoir introduced in mid-60s the concept of social exclusion in his seminal study Les Exclus, when it was published, numerous policy efforts at the national level were targeted at improvement of the terms of participation in society for disadvantaged people. Most often, policymakers saw social inclusion both as process and a goal. Digitalization is a vital element in both cases. So social development is linked to improving the well-being of people. Key goal is enable people to reach their full potential. It implies policies aimed at benefiting individual in terms of improved nutrition, better healthcare, education, social protection, and digitalization has become a crucial factor in this regard. So, as I said, the quest for social inclusion echoes the pledge made by the international community to leave no one behind. Next, please. Next slide, please. So, the digitalization has become a powerful element of bringing people closer, giving them new information sources that were otherwise beyond the reach of most on various reasons. In this sense, information and communication technologies have become a proven channel for social inclusion, facilitating access to new opportunities and new life chances. This new access to new opportunities is really an important important impact of digitalization. Next slide, please. The current trends leave no doubt that digitalization is a multidimensional process, and as such, it could be a very useful tool for achieving the core objectives of social development, as identified by the World Social Summit in Copenhagen many years ago, namely eradicating poverty, promoting full and productive employment, and fostering social inclusion. This policy triad identified in 1995 was basically reinforced by Agenda 2030 and Sustainable Development Goals. But of course, it was enhanced by several key points addressed to the climate change. Dealing intergenerational aspects are important for moving forward towards all these three aspects. Particularly, we understood this dealing with the fallout of the COVID crisis because it has become a new cross-sectoral challenge for all age groups. Next slide, please. So the COVID crisis has been a factor which facilitated or actually forced many countries to accelerate the use of digital technologies. For example, in distance learning and services provision, including healthcare. Teleconferences with the doctors became a standard pattern in many countries. The role of technology, particularly artificial intelligence or robotics, they are very important and they are growing fast, bringing changes to the world of work. And it has a potential to accelerate this process in the future. So advances in the use of digital technologies are not only expanding choices where and when to work, but also has potential of significant job creation. So in this context, I would like to refer an authoritative study done by the Global Commission on the Future of Work, set up by the ILO Director General, which came to the conclusion that governments and workers and employers organizations need to invest in incubating, testing, and disseminating digital technologies in support of decent work. And this is really an important policy statement. Next slide, please. Technology has a significant impact on the livelihoods of both younger and older cohorts, but quite often in a different manner. For example, the risk of automation is highest among jobs held by youth. According to the ILO analysis, the probability of the automation is higher for the youngest workers than the workers in their 40s, for example. It could be explained by the combination of factors, including cost considerations, when it is more costly for many companies to terminate workers who have been on board for a long time, rather than newcomers, the workers at the entry level who tend to be younger. So another factor, of course, is a disproportional displacement of lower skilled jobs, which are also more likely to be performed by the newly recruited young workers. Next slide, please. But these fundamental disruptions in the world of work coexist with remarkable opportunities for younger people in this area, allowing use of new ideas, new products, and new markets on a larger scale. But the quality of these new opportunities is closely linked to the level of digital skills and supporting business environment, including access to finance. And digital skills, in its turn, are closely connected to education and training opportunities. Next slide, please. At the other end of the spectrum, we should mention that not only younger cohorts, not only younger people are affected, older persons are affected by digital technologies in many ways, and they belong to a category that often do not benefit in full from the potential of the digitalization. I would say that this is a clearly challenge for society to bring all the persons on board in this regard and to make sure that they do not suffer of the introduction of new technology. Many older persons do not have computer skills and remain disconnected from the internet. Many studies demonstrate that age, as well as income and education, determine differences on technological adoption. For example, OECD study finds that about a third of workers in the age group which could be classified as older workers, age group 55 to 65, have no computer experience. And of course, it is a sure way for social exclusion in the world of today. So nobody wants this new so-called opportunity of exclusion to emerge. Next slide, please. So the digital divide is quite visible in many spheres of life. And it is quite visible even at the family level as well. When possibilities of internet access do exist, all the persons may not necessarily use new opportunities, contrary to younger generations, even to their grandchildren, who are much more prepared and better prepared in this regard. So the physical availability of computers and the internet should be matched with people's ability to make use of those technologies, to engage in meaningful social practices. Then the goal of social inclusion could be achieved much faster and more effectively. So in all these discussions, we should not lose the intergenerational dimension from our side. The issues linked to digital inclusion across generations belong to a new set of challenges. And here I would like to say that we should apply the intergenerational lens to these challenges to be fully aware about various nuances of this process. The existing policies should focus at fostering solidarity between generations and thus promoting social cohesion. Intergenerational engagement in the workforce is beneficial for society as it maximizes opportunities to benefit from the comparative advantage of both younger and older generations. Next slide, please. So, seeing enormous potential of digitalization in terms of opportunities and benefits offered by the new technologies, one has to notice that these opportunities are not emerging spontaneously and are not realized automatically. They require a shared vision and concerted action of the state, of the private sector, and the civil society. These are key stakeholders and partners in reducing and eliminating barriers in access and use of technology and pursuing coherent strategies aimed at promoting digital inclusion. With long-term strategic planning, there is a possibility to consider the additional needs that accompany new technology. Then additional steps could be made to ensure that technology is sustainable and, very important, equitable. Next slide, please. So, concentrating on overcoming digital divide, we should say that digital divide is a serious obstacle in the context of social inclusion, and it needs to be addressed at the highest level of government, again, with assistance of all partners and stakeholders. Because of the digital divide, access of all groups within these generations is not equitable. And the age-based digital divide reflects a long-standing inequality in the access to and skills to make use of new technology. So it might be called a contemporary truism that digital literacy and digital skills education they are now essential, indispensable to moving forward. And emerging technologies and increased automation make it necessary to learn these new skills at early age. So digital inclusion should be a core policy goal across higher education in the future. Next slide, please. So it is a well-recognized challenge. According to the background document for the World Economic Forum, and I quote, "Our digital future must be inclusive. Inclusion does not just refer to internet access and accessibility, but also includes participating in the social and economic benefits, outputs, and in opportunities to shape how technologies impact our lives. The benefits accruing from technology are exponential, and closing the digital divide will become increasingly difficult. We risk embedding structural inequality into our society, into our social and economic systems, condemning many to intergenerational exclusion." This is from the background document of the forum called Our Shared Digital Future, Building an Inclusive, Trustworthy, and Sustainable Digital Society. I think it summarizes the challenge very well. Next slide, please. So what might be called a prerequisites for moving forward or possibilities achieving a success in this? I would say that there are some big ifs here for the possibility of success. If the policy mix aimed at digital governance is correct, if funding is available, and if institutional changes in society go hand in hand with these efforts. But most important are people, of course, who are at the receiving end and their capabilities. In this sense, their attitudes are absolutely crucial. Next slide, please. Now, I would like to refer to several very interesting national case studies which illustrate how intergenerational solidarity is being fostered using digital technologies. I would like to refer to two German-speaking countries, Austria and Germany. They have a pretty interesting projects which illustrate intergenerational learning and digital empowerment. For example, Austria's project, which is called TIC technology, in brief tablet for everyone, aims to address the digital inclusion for all the populations through intergenerational learning. In this project, young tablet trainers, so-called tablet trainers, who are normally volunteers age 16 to 30, which is clearly a younger cohort, offer digital literacy courses to senior citizens. Participants include older persons from economically disadvantaged backgrounds and women with low level of education. So in this sense, it's a sure way to promote inclusion. Several thousand people have participated in the models and have taken the course program, including the oldest participants. In Germany, also, there was a very interesting case when it made to advance digital literacy by supporting courses for older persons and mentoring partnerships between the young and old to help eliminate barriers and promote social interaction among its citizens. So lifelong learning is one of the key words in this regard. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development calls for inclusive and equitable quality education and promotion of lifelong learning opportunities for all, which is SDG 4. By the same token, I would refer to a very interesting document produced by the European Union, 2017 Lisbon Ministerial Declaration, which sets the region's policy priorities in the field of aging and also encourage access to lifelong learning opportunities for later ages, which is essential with the use of digital technologies. Promoting e-inclusion is a great way to foster and achieve social and digital inclusion for all by providing more learning opportunities for senior citizens in different sections of society. Next file. And finally, coming to an end, I would like to say that digital empowerment is clearly an important goal and maybe even an important prerequisite for intergenerational solidarity, which is a factor of today, but will be a factor of tomorrow as well. Digital empowerment in this sense is a solution for all generations. This empowering approach views people as subjects and actors who have abilities to develop, not as objects who lack these abilities and need one-way help from authorities. So empowerment of individuals and communities means increasing control over life and coping skills. So in this sense, with information technology, people gain new abilities and new ways to participate and express themselves in a network society. And this is a sure way to promote intergenerational solidarity and bonding among generations. Thank you very much.
Okay, do you see the screen? It's okay for all of you?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Perfect.
thank you. Thank you. Oh, sorry. No, okay. Good morning. First of all, I would like to thank the International Council on Social Welfare, the organizer, and Professor Antonio Lopez Peláez for the invitation to be here with all of you. It is an honor and a challenge for me to share ideas and proposals that we can discuss. I consider the organization of this seminar with the interdisciplinarity and international approach a success. Thanks again to the organizers and the International Council on Social Welfare, which is a world reference since the beginning of the 20th century. The combination of perspectives is fundamental to think about social welfare and inclusion in digital societies. I intend to provide a theoretical framework oriented to good practices as professor of social work and social policies, and also as a member of other organizations such as Cybernetics Society and the Internet Our Own chapter. Secondly, I will divide my presentation into the 5 sections you see on the screen. I will begin with a brief introduction to situate the point of analysis and the method. I will continue with a proposal to delimit what can understand by the notion of digital societies and ICTs. I will then address the question of surveillance and data capitalism as structural, globalized, and invasive elements. Then, in light of the above points, I will raise the tension between ICTs, social welfare, and inclusion in COVID-19 times, concluding with some final remarks with which to continue the reflection. Any of us, talks about the world from a position. In this brief introduction, I will present where I stand. these are some notes for a theoretical framework within what is called the socio-cybernetic paradigm that can be summarized as a system science in sociology and other social science. We would need more time to go into details. I will not. I just want to highlight a few ideas. Things don't happen only by random. There is not only luck. We can draw a course and we can mark a target, and we have to highlight the responsibility of the observer, here the speaker, and if we go further, the policymakers. According to Bernard Scott, there are 3 points to emphasize. The observer is responsible for the world she constructs. The observer should enter the domain of her own descriptions. The observer is responsible for the answers to, in principle, undesirable questions, as Von Foster said. And please remember this for the rest of the presentation. And also, this must be connected with the Scott's laws of observation and action. That is, there is always a bigger picture, there is always another level of detail, there is always another perspective, there is always error, and there is always the unexpected. These 5 principles are relevant here and now, in the midst of a huge and unexpected global pandemic. We are at a point in human history where we need to add perspectives to better understand where we are and where we want to go. We must remember that one has a point of view from which to see everything. No one has this point of view. To see the world as a whole, we need to note this aspect in order to affirm the international dimension and remember the old metaphor of the spaceship Earth, this planet where we travel together. Even if we don't like it, we are neighbors. And COVID-19 has shown us that we share the same fragility and the same biosphere. Social welfare, from this perspective, cannot be only the privilege of first-class passengers. The pandemic reconfirms that we share the same risks, and this is a perspective we cannot forget. This is true in all fields, but even more so if we think of digital societies and ICTs. But the question is, what do we call digital societies? What are ICTs? I will start with the easy part of the second question. Information and communication technologies, ICTs, is a broader term for information technology, which refers to all communication technologies, including the internet, wireless networks, cell phones, and so on, enabling users to access, retrieve, store, transmit, and manipulate information in digital form. It's a well-known history, expanded rapidly in the 20th century. Let's not forget the military origin of the internet, something that is still here until it explodes with the World Wide Web in the 90s. In fact, in 1995, the US Federal Network Council agreed on a consensus definition on the term internet, as you can read here. This was a turning point, a milestone to mark in the history of ICTs. It is a key element for the digitalization of our lives and societies. We cannot go through all the details here. This is a date to remember. It was a key step in a process that has led to the digitalization of our daily lives. And let me define the digitalization as the whole relations, structures, and elements involved in the assumption of the ICTs in an aspect of life. Digitalization processes transforms interactions with users as well as their demands and needs. This also transforms the organizations where social workers engage in professional practice. And finally, digitalization produces a digital environment that creates its own context in which processes of exclusion are redefined and where it is necessary to develop new strategies for diagnosis, intervention, and assessment. So, what do we call digital societies? My answer, wherever a cell phone with data access can be used and a desktop or laptop computer can be connected to a communication network, we have the basic conditions to speak of a digital society. So we need basic technical infrastructure, electricity supply, computers, communication networks. In addition, we need a set of apps that allow to deploy different levels of interaction between users, creating spaces for symbolic and material exchange, market and socialization spaces as social sphere or digital context. This produces a system of computer-mediated communications. In practice, we can distinguish this digital context and define observables as human footprints and personal traces. This is the place for behavioral data, which we return later to think about inclusion in the digital societies. Now, I would like to recall some data graphically. No electricity access means no digitalization. This map exaggerates where is this difficulty. The most recent data are a bit more optimistic. You can see here the access to electricity in urban population in 2018. Or here the access in rural population. And also other relevant points are the fixed broadband subscription 2019. Perhaps we are at the historical moment to consider access to these basic infrastructures as a fundamental part of human rights. Digital rights as a new dimension of human rights, not only in an information society, but in digital societies. There are piles of pages and reports about this. There are many, many attempts to generate standards and indexes and indicators. One example is the ICT Development Index from International Telecommunication Union or the Skills Framework for the Information Age for the Sphere Foundation, all of them with different perspectives and interests. It is still a battle for the dominant position. It is a classic struggle to generate hegemonic knowledge that has international effects. It's a breeding ground for many opportunities, but also for dangers. In the next step, I want to address two issues: surveillance and data capitalism. There are a number of publications that warn us of surveillance and data use as a problem. Zero servers, surveillance capitalism, control, immense power of the 5 big, or GAFM, Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft, among others. As data users, we have become commodities. Our digital habits and the transfer of our data make us objects of surveillance capitalism, and by extension, raw material for data capitalism. In this sense, Harold Lanier argued that free technologies such as Facebook have a hidden and high cost, that of the livelihoods of their consumers. We have entered a perverse system where our behavioral surplus becomes the fuel of data capitalism, and the old inertia of extractivism repeats itself. Technology produces a gap between those who master it and those who do not, between those who are aware of its effects and those who have not even thought about it. The discovery of the value of personal data has fueled an international business of gigantic dimensions, an extractive business. The data, our preferences anticipate our decisions and thus feed the system. We can represent it as a tension between forms of submission, power relations, and levels of consciousness. We are at a crucial moment to think about social welfare in relation to data capitalism, in personal terms, but above all from international perspective. It is up to us to think about who owns what, who do they work with our data, yours and mine, what forms of exclusion are produced, because even data of electricity consumption is used to develop market strategies that anticipate my own preferences. how does this affect the structural dynamics of the digital society? It is necessary to think about the relations between hardware, software, and social welfare. Although they may seem to be separate issues as distant fields of knowledge, it is time to think about the effects of construction of a digital society where social welfare is part of the core of the model. It is up to us to think on this spaceship Earth about data sovereignty and data ownership in a system of guaranteeing digital rights. We cannot be just objects or commodities in a global market of data and surveillance that feeds increasingly distant and powerful extractive elites. The COVID pandemic has accelerated the above dynamics and accentuated the contradictions inside the spaceship. Despite difference and mistakes, never before have so many common efforts been made to stop a pandemic like this one. The challenges are many, and there is no single way to address them. We can take a quick look at the European Union case. We would need much more time to go into the details. I will only emphasize one sentence from the European Union's political program: technology that works for the people. I don't mean to be Eurocentric, but this kind of priority deserves to be generalized. If you remember the beginning of this presentation, we can draw a course and mark up a target. Social welfare and ICTs are part of the same continuum where inclusion is at stake, which is aimed at human digital rights. Technology in general and ICTs in particular can facilitate control and emancipation, power and freedom. For this very reason, we need to reach a consensus on policies that benefit us all, policies at the service of passengers of the spaceship Earth. And in this, now that capitalism is alone, oh, sorry. Social, okay, sorry. And here, I was lost in my presentation. And technology in general and ICTs in particular can facilitate control and emancipation, power and freedom. For this very reason, we need to reach a consensus on policy that benefits all of us, policies at the service of passengers. Authoritarian capitalism and liberal capitalism are not the same. The shadows are not the same. COVID-19 has also shown us this in a controversial way, and we must learn from it. I have to end. Things don't happen only by random. There is not only luck, they have to highlight our responsibility as experts and social scientists, and of course, recall the role of policymakers. Social welfare and inclusion in digital societies have to deal with surveillance and data capitalism. The COVID-19 wake up a global challenge where the dynamics between the technological evolution of ICTs, the social knowledge produced by social interactions, and the pillar of the digital rights should not more as a simple political promise. This week, Internet Society launched the 2020 Impact Report entitled "The Internet is a Lifeline." We can rephrase the idea. Social welfare and inclusion can no longer be neglected in digital societies. This is in the context of ICTs. Digital social work can help to do it. And I finish with words of Facundo Cabral, killed in 2011 in Guatemala. Blessed is the one who knows that sharing a pain is dividing and sharing a joy is multiplying it. Thanks for your attention. I am here if you have any question.
Associate Professor in the School of Social Welfare at UC Berkeley and at the University of California, San Francisco. My research is really based in large part on the fact that over 5 billion people in the world own phones today. Increasingly, those phones are smartphones. So we know that these smartphones provide a great opportunity to reach people, to send information, and also to collect information. And our goal is to utilize these tools to improve mental health. When we speak about digital health is a broad umbrella that encompasses a variety of types of interventions. So what I will be talking about mostly is text messaging, for example, but consumer mobile apps are also a big portion of it. There's wearable devices. And as we know more and more, telemedicine has become the norm. So anything that involves technology and health in some ways. And my emphasis is going to be more on mental health. And what we see in terms of applications for digital health, targeting health problems, mental health covers the largest portion of that. One of the reasons for that is that mental health issues often involve some constant monitoring, constant management. And apps help with this process. There are different types of interventions. So there's the kind of one-on-one typical intervention that we might have. And then type 2, we would consider face-to-face intervention with some technology adjunct, which is mostly what I'll be talking about today. And then type 3 would be what we would call a self-help intervention, something that an individual does on their own, but there's guidance or a coach, perhaps, something like that. And then type 4, which is a totally automated intervention that does not require help from somebody else. It's just the technology. Supportive accountability is a really important concept to consider when we're thinking about these types of interventions. Because the technology is providing information, but what we're missing is the human support element. And what we know is that when we include the human support, there's increased accountability, legitimacy, motivation, and that leads to increased adherence and use of these tools. The efficiency model expands upon this concept and brings in ideas about usability. So I'm starting to consider designs of behavioral intervention technologies, and then in talks about the interaction between a supporter and a patient through these concepts of fit, engagement, knowledge, and implementation, which then lead to improved outcomes. However, so far, the challenge with digital health broadly is that a lot of these tools tend to be designed with and for people who are already relatively healthy and relatively well off. Silicon Valley has obviously been the area where most of this growth has happened, but the tools, at least early on, have been for folks within that same circle, or and have not been focused on addressing needs as much as addressing individual consumers. Another huge challenge is that digital health applications are by far most available in English. So if that's the case, we really limit the impact, particularly globally, or even within countries that have diverse languages, such as the US. When we look at top funded digital health companies, a recent study found that they're not addressing the most high burden populations, and that they're not addressing outcomes of cost and access to care. So there's really a lot more work to be done if digital health is actually going to reduce the disease burden or cost in the US, which have been the promises of this line of work. So there's when we look at the intersection between mental health and digital disparities, what we know is that racial and ethnic minorities, at least in the US, but this applies globally, are less likely to receive mental health services, and when they do, they're more likely to receive lower quality of care. Diverse patients, particularly with lower levels of education, also face challenges completing even the core functions of these applications. If marginalized and underserved populations aren't considered during the development, these disparities might be further entrenched rather than overcome. And that's really at the core concern for developing with and for these populations, and drives a lot of my work. When we look at the area of digital disparities, we know that in the US, Latinos are more likely to be smartphone dependent, but they do utilize things like text messaging, WhatsApp, things like that. In a study, this was 5 years ago, so we can imagine that results are similar or higher. 86% of patients in primary care expressed a desire to use a health app, and 40% expressed motivation to use these apps daily. We also know that many digital interventions are not recruiting diverse populations, and this is a problem for then implementation and applicability.
Sorry, we cannot hear you.
Sorry. Rafael, can you check it, please?
Health equity. And the main point gleaned from the workshop is that technology is about people. So addressing racial and ethnic disparities goes back to the foundation of placing people first and not technology first. And this is really an important concept that it has taken us some time to really come to terms with. The field in general got enamored with technology, and technology for technology's sake, or technology being the sole solution. But what we're realizing is that when tools work, they combine human and technology, and they center the human experience. Another conclusion was that community engagement is essential in designing, evaluating, and adapting these technologies. So we need to develop with and for the folks that are in most need and have fewest resources. So now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the specific area of work that I've done, and that's applying cognitive behavioral therapy for depression in the public setting. And some of the challenges that we face in doing this is that we know that attendance predicts improvement. So when people attend session, they get better. However, 23% drop out after one session. And when they are in session, when they are taking the treatment, only 23% of them complete the homework. So those are the practice of the skills, and then many drop out. This is what assessment of the attendance looks like. So we see that many patients only attend 2, 3, or 4 sessions, when there should be a big bump at 16, which is what the treatment is intended to last. So we know the problem of attrition is broad in mental health treatment, and it's highest in low-income and ethnic minority settings, and it's also highest for technology-based interventions when the technology is the sole intervention, so when it's not paired with the humans. So our goal is to leverage text messaging to improve treatment quality and engagement. So why text messages? Well, they're widely accessible, they're cost efficient, and they're easy to use. They also result in high engagement rates. So when you send somebody a text message, there's a really high likelihood that somebody's going to read it. Hopefully they're going to respond to it as well. But most people at least look and see what was sent. Because of this, there's a greater sense of personal connection with messaging. So there's a sense that there's a human behind there somewhere. So we used text messaging as an adjunct to group cognitive behavioral therapy for depression at the public hospital in San Francisco. This treatment was functioned like a class that met weekly for 16 weeks. And the data that I'm going to present you is mostly of Spanish speakers, at least the quantitative data. Here are the characteristics of the patients. Average age is about 52. Most had less than a high school education. So this is an important element to consider when we're talking about digital literacy. 94% owned a smartphone, so very high rates of ownership. Although only 3/4 had used text messaging prior to the intervention. So we were able to teach people how to use the text messaging. So the way it was done previously, before the texting, was completing mood every day of the week using this piece of paper, and then maybe responding to some other question related to, let's say, how many healthy activities somebody did on a given day. So we turned that into a text messaging program where we sent mood monitoring text messages, what we call theme-based text messages to reinforce skills, and also set reminders if folks wanted them. These are examples of mood monitoring text messages that were sent randomly from 8 to 9 p.m. And we responded to those messages using a variable ratio schedule. So at a randomly 20% of the time that people responded. But we did this to try to not be as predictable and to increase responses. For example, if somebody responded with an 8, which is high mood, we'd give them some positive reinforcement. If it was a little bit lower, we'd nudge them to see if they could increase it. These are the theme-based text messages, which reinforce whatever we were talking about that week in session. This is a basic medication reminder. This is a reminder to attend session. And when the data went into the system, it was uploaded into a chart where then we would feed it back to participants, and we can utilize it to reinforce the core elements of treatment. So for example, here, a respondent marked 6, estoy en casa, 6, I'm at home. And we might then contrast that with the next day, 8, estoy con una amiga, I'm with a friend. And talk about the differences between those experiences of being alone at home versus being with a friend. So the data then becomes more valid retrospectively, and then hopefully provide some teaching opportunities. So after participating in the text messaging group, participants attended about 6 sessions compared to 2.5 sessions of the non-texting group. So over twice as many sessions. So higher engagement. And when we compared weeks to dropout, the difference was even greater. So weeks to dropout was about 13.5 for folks in the text messaging intervention and 3 weeks for people in the non-text intervention. So this is important. You can see, if you go back here, the total sessions is pretty similar to the weeks till dropout. But here there's a sizable difference between the total sessions and the weeks dropout. So that means that people maybe had sporadic attendance, but we were able to keep people engaged in the treatment. So even if they missed a few weeks, they would come back later. So a text messaging adjunct can decrease treatment attrition. We can help more people get better, which is the goal. We dug deeper in the data to see how can we predict whether somebody is going to attend session, and we did find that mood the day before session predicted attendance such that 1 point higher than average, for example, resulted in 32% higher likelihood to attend sessions, or vice versa, 1 point lower, 32% less likely to attend sessions. So this is important because then we can identify critical points for micro interventions. We can outreach to people, target low mood, or have just a clinician reach out, given that we know that a patient might be at risk of not attending. We also looked at whether these mood ratings were tied to a gold standard clinical rating, the PHQ-9, and found that indeed there is a relationship. So this is important because we then might be able to use these simple mood ratings to assess symptoms in large numbers of people. We also looked at clustering users based on sessions attended and messages responded to. And we found some clusters where people who attended many sessions and responded to a lot of sessions, responded to a lot of text messages, were tended to be a little bit younger compared to those who, let's say, attended sessions a lot but didn't respond, right? And then the slowest group that didn't attend and didn't respond had the highest depression scores. So there's some variables that are impacting. So age is important, as well as depression symptoms beforehand, along with whether or not they actually prefer text messaging or not. If it's somebody who doesn't really like to message, then they're not likely to message as much. However, there was still some engagement. So there are various types of users. Older patients attend live sessions more, younger patients text more, and more depressed attend less. So these aren't surprising necessarily, but it is helpful to understand which users may be more likely to uptake these types of interventions. When we ask people about feedback, we can see that English speakers in the development of this talked about how the messages help them check in with themselves and be introspective. Spanish speakers talked a lot about relational aspects. I realize that someone cares for me and I don't feel alone. So we start to see some cultural differences in how the intervention was taken in or received. And these are things that are important to consider and we're looking into further. In terms of suicidality, which is a question that often comes up, we instruct patients that this is not direct communication, but patients still feel a connection. We have keywords that then trigger messages to the clinician or researcher to check the system for the message. For example, kill, jump, bridge, suicide, etc. So the lessons learned are that patients who text attend more and stay longer. Prior day mood rating predicts attendance. Mood ratings via text can approximate PHQ-9. There are different types of users, and patients generally like interacting with automated text messages. So recently, we also developed a texting program to aid with healthy coping during COVID-19, a program called Stay Well at Home or Bienestar en Casa, where we adapted some of our CBT text messages to a 60-day program where people would get 2 messages a day, asking them what their mood was and providing them some tips about how to manage their mood. We found that over 60 days, PHQ-9 scores decreased almost 2 points, and the anxiety scores also decreased, both significant. So this is an example of how we might be able to use text messaging as a public mental health tool to reach large numbers of people. The effects are not huge, but the intervention is highly scalable. So I'd like to acknowledge the great team that I work with and the funders, all of who have helped make these projects possible. Thank you all very much for having me, and I hope you found the talk useful.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect, perfect.
I'm going to share my screen. Can you see my presentation? Complete.
Yes, perfect.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, hello everyone. My name is Joaquín Castillo de Mesa. I'm lecturer at University of Malaga, Spain, and it's a great honor to be here today. So thank you so much to all the members of organization committee for this opportunity. My presentation is titled Digital Social Work, Strategies to Incorporate Digital Media into Practice and Research. And then I will divide my presentation in all these contents. The digital transformation of society is changing the way we relate to each other and the resulting behavior patterns. People spend a lot of time every day using different internet services and applications to carry out daily tasks in their lives. Whether it is buying a product at home, asking for medical appointments, or requesting a benefit or help. This activity leads us to interact with people and things in the digital universe on the daily basis. In different digital contexts, paradigmatic social phenomena are emerging, such as disinformation, polarization, or radicalization, but also problematic behaviors are reaching a greater amplification on the online universe, such as the increasing loneliness, cyber sexting, cyberbullying, sharenting, cybergrooming, etc. Moreover, all the technologies, algorithms in artificial intelligence, machine learning are reproducing stereotypes from designing, and it is provoking discrimination of certain groups. We can see here on the slide examples where algorithms determine the access to financial solvency or access to education. The social consequences of digital transformation society challenge to social work as a discipline and profession that works closely with social problems, which has the ability to know how to detect new needs and especially to be able to transform them into solutions. The COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated the digitalization needs in social work and social services. From the social work approach, it is necessary to analyze the social changes that is causing impact on people's lives, especially those most vulnerable. From the professional perspective, international social work institutions have long been encouraging social workers to use technology and to explore creative ways to use online services. From the scientific point of view, different social work academics are analyzing how social work address the digital transformation. Here on the slides, we can see some of the monographs about digital social work that were edited along the last years. As a result, digital social work has deeply been analyzed. But what is digital social work? Digital social work is an emerging field of specialization that addresses the ability to social work professionals to know how to rely on digital tools to analyze, find, and develop solutions to the social problem of individuals, groups, and communities. Social work should use this digital media, but with criteria. If they are properly used, they can offer very interesting possibilities for practice and research. Anyway, in no case is it intended to replace conventional face-to-face activities with digital ones, but rather to take advantage of the potential of digital media to improve and complement face-to-face activities, developing new methodologies and techniques that optimize practice and research. Although international associations have encouraged social workers to face the digital transformation and academics have analyzed digital social work, there is a lack of theoretical models from which to explain how social workers are addressing this digital challenge. Therefore, I will present 3 models from which the digital transformation of social work is being faced. First, digital adaptation, second, digital transition, and third, digital disruption. As said Jane Addams, the essence of social work is to build and to facilitate relationships to overcome problems. Because digital media supports a type of complementary, massive, and frequent socialization with high penetration in society, it is recommended to incorporate these possibilities from social work approach. From the adaptation model, social workers are adopting internet services and applications that improve their activities. Web 3.0 services have constituted an entire digital architecture that makes easier cooperation based on practice. Here we can see some of the used services and apps that social workers are adopting and adapting to practice. The digital transition model, for his part, involves taking advantage of the extension and traffic of data to all orders of life. The digital transition entails the digitalization of services, processes, and products. Digitalization is a socio-technical process in which digitalization techniques are applied and adopted on a large scale in social and institutional contexts. It is conceived as a process to improve existing services, procedures, and tools through the digitalization of data. The digital transition focuses on the basic change of the data that is stored, retrieved, or manipulated, automating some step, updating to a new technology, incorporating additional integrations to improve response times, improve efficiency in terms of time are some of the examples. These digital transition projects represent substantial improvements in the way existing tasks are performed. On the other hand, from the disruption model, the way of conceiving a certain service has changed. This disruptive model is produced from what Sennett calls a change of domain. That is an approach that emerged to break with the established by proposing services, process, or product not considered until now. We can see on the slide 3 disruptive projects. As an example, I will tell briefly one of them. It is a project face the need of refugee people whose documents were destroyed in the war, and they cannot have a simple bank account because they have not formal identity without documents. In consequence, they cannot receive benefits to be helping. It is in this difficult situation, social workers and technologists were able to take off the intermediation of bank with blockchain through eyes recognition. Now, then, I'm going to show some research and practice strategies from the adaptation model. Remember, the adaptation model use and adapt different internet services to social work practice. First of all, I would like to highlight briefly all the different methodologies that I use to analyze. First, I extract and mine that data from the so-called big social data. Second, social network analysis was used to understand the online structure and to identify leadership. And third, different algorithms were used to detect communities and to analyze level of cohesion. Finally, ethnography was used to interpret the affinities and similarity inside of communities. One example here, you can see one example. Social work professionals have used social networking sites to improve communication among themselves, creating community of practice based on affinities and similarities. It has improved the cohesion as a result of incorporating these services to social work practice. The coordination, cooperation, and exchange of information between professionals were improved. So this is another example. For organization it's very important to take advantage of connectivity and interaction possibilities to amplify their capacity to achieve and spread information. Here, one study about the digital communication of Spanish social work colleges. The results show how presence, connectivity, and interaction are key conditions to take into account to improve the communication from organizations. From the adaptation model, social workers have been supporting each other on social networking sites to create ties, bonds between people, to build community of mutual support, and to empower citizens. We can see two examples in the slides. This is one, another one you can see. Also, on the other hand, the evidence has demonstrated that social networking sites are especially interesting for attending social emergencies, such as humanitarian crisis, natural disaster, or terrorist attacks, in which the early transmission of information is a key factor. Here we can see the analysis cases of using social networking sites to denunciate migration crisis of open arms in the Mediterranean Sea, to face the Brumadinho disaster in Brazil, or terrorist attack, 24 October plane. Moreover, social networking sites have also become a vehicle for expression and vindication of social rights. Here, an example about the impact of the mobilization around MeToo hashtag on social networking sites in the face of oppression and abuse toward women. From a university approach, we are analyzing digital skills on social work graduates. Here, some results. We have identified how social skill is a mediator variable, key mediator variable between different social network analysis metrics, connectivity, betweenness, closeness, and psychosocial results. On the other hand, from social work practice approach, looking for new solutions on digital media. I'm currently advising to the social services of the Council of my city, Malaga, to incorporate remote assistance and home visit online home visits through video calling services. It can complement face-to-face social work practice, and social work and service users are very happy about this innovation. Finally, we are using digital media to spread best international social work academic and professional practices. Using a YouTube channel and developing different courses and conferences on digital social work throughout the world. Okay, conclusions. Digital social work is a broad concept that invites us to think and how digital transformation is approached from the professional discipline of social work. The differential value of social work compared to other disciplines is that it faces this digital transformation for its own values and principles, claiming an active role in the design of the digital agenda, with the intention of promoting a greater humanization of technology, and above all, to become the voice of the most vulnerable people. Secondly, social work is postulated by defending the digital right of citizens and promoting digital inclusion policies that mitigate the different types of digital gaps of access, connectivity, use, and participation through digital inclusion policies. On the other hand, our global and local institutions and our professionals must be strategically present on digital spaces. It is an opportunity to create network to fight globally for human rights from digital activism approach. We have to take advantage of connectivity and interactions conditions. Moreover, social services have to adapt to the new reality and to look forward more than past. Opportunity to face the increasing bureaucracy, workloads, and improving services. And finally, we need to evaluate digital access, digital connectivity, digital use, digital participation, and especially orientation to achieve goals with our service users to improve digital inclusion and opportunities. Okay, thank you so much for attention. I leave my different profiles where you can find more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Antonio, and thank you, ICSW, for the invitation to share from the education and training perspective of social work. Let me just get the slides. Today, my topic is access and strategies for the future of online social work education. I can also title it Disrupting Traditional Social Work Training in this New Era. And I think it is important that we see ICT, as has been spoken by the various speakers, as a social inclusion and social welfare tool to bring about a better society. And I represent not just IASSW, I'm also the chair of the Global Institute of Social Work, which is an online social work training platform. We have seen global disruptions all over the world because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but we also see disruptions in other fields, not just in social welfare. And we look at economic, monetary system, financial, and also the political system being overhauled. I think what we are calling for is social innovation and creative response. And I believe as humans, we are more adaptive to the environment. And this aspect of the disaster could be a blessing in that you will get us to realize that we need to restructure our environment to survive. So with lockdown in many societies, as in Singapore, which is one of the more stringent society, we find that people have gone into non-face-to-face interaction, whether it's in businesses, in schools, in the families, and in particular social services. So there is an interesting aspect of observation in that people that we don't connect with so regularly, we begin to be in touch with, like all of you here, we would not have been in touch with each other unless we use the mechanism of the internet and the ICT and Zoom. So we are able to see each other from different parts of the world very close up, which was not possible in the past. And we not only do that, we do not just see the whole crowd, we could individually see the responses. And being a teacher, I could see the response and the reaction of my students online more clearly than even in the classroom. So ICT and social work is not new, as the speakers have said, but we are applying it to social services, which is more innovative. We are using social media, we are using communication tools, we are using computers and iPad. We just concluded a study on working with elderly at home in terms of delivering social services and training elderly to use the iPad to communicate with social workers. So we find that online social work training is also an important aspect. And when the COVID-19 pandemic came on, it was in Wuhan city. And right at that time, last year, about a year, maybe a couple of months before May, the students who were already doing placement in Wuhan city, in the Jiangchun County, and they have to innovate, and they actually use online, they use WhatsApp, they use in the Chinese WeChat, and they were able to connect with families, with clients, and work at not just the micro level, but also network community organizations to protect the children and to help the families. So we find the innovation here, for example, in the photos, just after the lockdown, they were able to distribute masks, they were able to get together with the community. So innovation in social services at the front line takes place when there is a necessity. When there is necessity, is a mother of invention. So in a local social enterprise in Singapore, my student actually developed community resilience by engaging community participation, building awareness, resilience, and mobilization. And they do this with free webinars and training and interviews on mental health and on burnout. So they actually were innovative to get Ideathon trying to find strategies to help community respond better, and they came up with mental resilience toolkit. And this is all online, and also the support of frontline workers. So you find that, again, whether it's social services or training or social enterprise, they are able to use technology and social media. And I have never attended so many international conferences in 1 year as in the year 2020. You know, we have so many people coming together. The recent ICSW and IASSW conference on the international social work, education and development. We have people from all over the world joining in at different time zones as we are doing now. And that's at a fraction of the cost it would take if we were in person. At that time was supposed to be Rimini, but now we have done it online, and it was quite effective. So what we are looking at is that for the schools, there is a need to innovate and adapt the school's curriculum. So I first interviewed my president, Anna Maria Campanini from IASSW. What did their university do during the coronavirus lockdown and the impact? So they have to deal with one course in particular, which is the social work practicum, and they have to have innovative components. For example, remote field placement of 50 hours and webinars that are used 10 times to bring the students together. And then they do internal remote field placement, more of skills training, and then they develop understanding and impact of coronavirus on the social service system. And that's a paper and a presentation that the students do. So you need to restructure. And in this time and age, because of the crisis, the students need to have skills in emergency situation, developing expertise in managing health hazards and pandemic. So they learn how to manage helping relationships and redefining the roles of social workers. So I find that that's an innovation that is needed. And in the field education, again, this is from India, the Tata Institute. They want to ensure that even in the pandemic, there is a continuity in the learning in the social work curriculum. And so in this situation, they have to have physical work. That means direct work, where students must first be willing to undertake that work because of the precautions that have to be taken. And then the secondary data work, where they can use learning outcomes from studies that have been made and from data of secondary sources. So these are records and say reports from agencies. And then they can also do online work and collecting the placement of the different agencies where students have worked with. So Sajahan, who is also your Vice President of ICSW and the Dean of Academics at the Tata Institute, says that it is important to have a combination. Number one is the learning objectives have to be clear, and then the students' willingness to participate is important, and then the risk and opportunities in each of the placement and the willingness of the agency, but also within the regulation and the control of the government in terms of the regulatory bodies. So it is important to have ongoing close supervision for the ethical aspect of deploying students in fieldwork. Now, we know that Zoom has been a key platform. I'm sure they have made tons of money. And in Singapore University of Social Sciences, Zoom was adopted, and Dr. Chi herself said that in teaching the community development class, she has to help the students make observations of the community, speak to the residents, And so she has to incorporate case studies, interview people online, and develop secondary material, case studies, newspaper clippings, videos from the news, as well as looking at how community work is done in the ground by inviting people to join in. So in China, again, teaching methods were blended and flipped learning approach. I think some of you are familiar with flipped learning. And there were so many courses that were mounted within just the first 3 months of the COVID-19 exposure in China. From February, March, April, there was a slew of courses, and you can see on the right side the courses on fighting or the war against the virus, and in different places, and it's publicized in the Voice of China for social work. And so online education training is important, and they use technology then in Beijing University, for example, to have a voice to reflect what society is facing. And in that way, they are also training and supervising students to be change agents, to be innovative social workers in the midst of the pandemic. So then Prof. Ma herself said, how should social work education and teaching be done? How should we teach it in a way that is relevant? And I'm so glad that my institute, the Global Institute of Social Work, was able to mount a number of courses in this area of crisis management and disaster preparedness. In Malaysia, Lincoln University switched their mode towards a more American modular platform where you can complete different modules and then graduate, because the classes are very difficult to arrange. They do have live Zoom, but they also have recording as asynchronous alternative to teaching. In South Africa, students may not have the devices for online training, so they would have to provide students, and they use Teams, which allow for breakaway groups and small group discussions, chat group on Moodles and WhatsApp, as well as voice-over recording for the students. So I think schools are able to innovate. The Global Institute of Social Work aims to have greater access and equity as a strategy for online social work education and training. So the question here is, when there is training available, should it be available to those only who can pay? And some professors are saying, what about our own intellectual property right if we open up courses free for people? And I think what we have in today is that a great many courses are already being disrupted. Many major universities are having difficulty getting enrollment and fees because the training is available worldwide. And so the vision of Global Institute of Social Work is to deliver quality social work training to those who need it most. And that is a question of access and equity and the redistribution of resources. We are not asking that the university grant the degree, because we have moved away from a degree base to a competence base to a training professional workers. And I think it is controversial, but I believe that there should be universal access to social work knowledge and engagement. So in the COVID-19 responses, GISW has mounted courses on disaster management, crisis intervention in Chinese language, and also in different languages. We are already moving into Vietnamese language, Russian language, and different international language. So I think this is an aspect here that disaster know no boundaries. And in a sense, social work intervention can be cross-border and can be effective. And what we are looking at is how can we have an ethical imperative to share what must be a universal right to knowledge and technology, as has been said, and whether there could be more specialization that you can pay for the training, but the general knowledge, I think the delivery has to be something accessible. And not only accessible, it should also be contextualized and the application to which in the local practice. So the strategies for online education is that we can be a sounding board and also a clearinghouse for good training that is not wasted once and then it's kept in the shelf or not even shared at all, but there should be greater access. So we said the universalization of social knowledge is important, and then the network and contextualization in terms of building platforms that can share with one another. And then, as we have said earlier, the different networks. And I'm glad ICSD, ICSW, my former chair of a Commonwealth Organization of Social Work, many groups are coming together, and we have actually launched Global Social Work Talk, ideas that can change the world. And I invite you to join in. So the ideas here is that we must generate basic knowledge, skills, and values that can be shared universally. We can hone these skills and practice with indigenous material in the different contexts, and we can provide something that will be useful to everyone, that is cost-effective, quality, and we can unite in sharing knowledge and expertise to enhance skills and techniques so that knowledge and skills are shared with those who need it most. And therefore, I conclude with this dictum: all for one and one for all. I think it's from your part of the world, the Three Musketeers.
5분의 발표 잘 들으셨나요? 다음은 두 번째 세션입니다. ICT를 활용한 사회 서비스 국가별 사례를 살펴보고자 합니다. 총 5분께서 스페인, 한국, 대만, 모로코, 브라질의 활용 사례를 소개하시겠습니다. 첫 번째 순서로 안토니오 로페즈 펠라즈, 국제사회복지협의회 사무총장이자 스페인 원격 국립대학교 교수님께서 발표하십니다. 스페인의 ICT와 디지털 사회산업의 발표로 듣겠습니다. 다음으로는 한국의 사례를 소개합니다. 강남대학교 박영남 교수님께서 한국의 ICT 활용 사회 서비스 사례를 주제로 발표하시겠습니다. 세 번째 발표입니다. 웬샨린 대만국립대학교 가족복지센터 교수님께서 스마트 리빙과 사회복지를 위한 대만의 ICT 적용 사례를 주제로 발표하시겠습니다. 다음 발표로는 아민 무니르 모로코 사회복지협의회 이사님의 발표가 있겠는데요. 주제는 ICT와 소셜미디어, 사회적 배제를 피하는 방법입니다. 오늘의 마지막 발표입니다. 마르시아 로페즈 브라질 런드리나 대학교 교수님께서 수아스, 소셜 인클루전을 위한 사회 보장 시스템, ICT 기술의 활용 사례를 주제로 발표하시겠습니다.
Welcome everybody. We are now starting our second session of our international seminar related to ICTs and digital social work. And I think that all of these issues, including gender issues as we talked before, are very important, and we are facing a great challenge for all our societies, no? And in my session, in my conference right now, First of all, I want to say hello to everybody, and I would like to thank President Dr. Su and all our regional presidents, because this is a collaborative, co-design seminar in which all of us, we are working together to present very wide approach to the ICTs and social welfare, no? First of all, I want to share my screen right now to my conference. Can you see that? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Can you see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes.
Thank you. Thank you. And now, well, this is the first. Okay. I would like to thank Dr. Su and our regional president, as I said, for the collaboration and effort in helping us to present the challenges of social welfare and ICTs to a global audience. Thank you very much. For me, it's an honor to serve as executive director of this organization, and I want to say thank you to our brothers and sisters from the International Association of Schools of Social Work. Challenging times can also be exciting times, and challenges have always been a strong stimulus for creativity and innovation. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought to light the weaknesses of our welfare systems. And in this context, the purpose of my presentation is to explore a key phenomenon that has been accelerated by COVID-19 crisis, the digitalization of our societies, and one of its effects, the need to design inclusive social policies in a digital environment through the development of digital social work of digital social welfare approach. The theoretical principle from which I start is the following. Without digitalization, there can be no inclusion. And the digitalization model we are implementing in our welfare systems will have lasting consequences. Digitalization represents a collective global challenge that will redefine the relationships between users, professionals, and the administration or companies that provide welfare services. And social work and social welfare profession has to be at the forefront of this innovation process. The digitalization of the economy, society, social services, public administration is not neutral in its designs, and it is not neutral in its effects. It creates new opportunities and new inequalities. And in this conference, I'm going to focus on the Spanish case. Spanish society is a society of early adopters of technology with a positive vision of technological innovation. We are happy people and we love technology, no? Almost 10 years ago, in 1913, 90% of young people between 13 and 24 years of age regularly use digital social networks. And today, a society is a society of digital natives, no? Public administration has evolved towards electronic administrations, and more administrative procedures can be carried out online, And in December 2018, before the pandemic, the Congress of Deputies of Spain unanimously approved a law that establishes the digital rights of the citizens. From 2015 to 2019, many projects have been carried out on digital social work and digital social welfare and on the digitalization of social services in Spain. And many results of these projects have been published in scientific journals and professional journals. Some results are as follows. No? Research on digital social service has revealed the positive relationship between well-being and digital skills in users of social services. The need for up-to-date training for social workers. and the need to develop clear guidelines for digital professional intervention. On the other hand, we realize the resistance of professionals to incorporate new technologies. The bureaucratic difficulties derive from the organization of social services itself, and user groups that they could remain on the sidelines, invisible, due to the difficulties in accessing and using new technologies. And COVID-19 has accelerated this process of change. The pandemic changed everything. To analyze the impact of the pandemic and the impact of digitalization in Spain, 4 issues must be taken into consideration, no? And we have to say that because not all of you have the opportunity to come to Spain and check our welfare system, no? First of all, the characteristics of our welfare state, its specific characteristics, and how austerity policies have changed our welfare state in the last 15 years. The outsourcing of public services and the dining of our public health system have weakened the capacity to respond to the pandemic. Second, family play a fundamental role in the care process and in the Spanish society. Family support and intergenerational solidarity are a key element of identity in the countries of Southern Europe and form a safety net for their inhabitants. Spain receives a huge number of tourists every year. We are ranked the second worldwide. And in this sense, we are a perfect place to suffer a pandemic, no? And as a part of the southern border of the European Union, Spain has to manage a strong migratory flow. A strong immigration flow is a very big problem for us too. Throughout the confinement, social workers have played in this context a fundamental role, developing online strategies to disseminate good practices and tackle misinformation. For example, the General Council of Social Work in Spain developed in the lockdown a toll-free hotline to provide health and social service professionals emotional support. Additionally, the Spanish government declared social services to be essential services throughout the country, and social work professionals launched novel initiatives to disseminate good practices in social services and combat fake news and misinformation in a context of total lockdown. Many public administrations now manage social services using ICTs, NGOs provide assistance using internet, and in this sense, today, in 2021, digital social work is part of our daily activity. Digitalization is nothing more than the incorporation of ICTs into everyday life. In particular, the widespread use of ICTs after the COVID-19 has impacted many aspects of professional social work and social welfare practice. Among them, the diagnosis and evaluation of needs, intervention with users, or the way of management the organizations where social workers perform their work. Our lines of research have led us to recognize digital social work as a critical area of specialization and intervention for both the present and future of our democracies. Without digital inclusion, as I said previously, democracy will be not possible in societies that are already digital. Hence the importance of developing a theoretical framework and methodology of digital social work underpinned by human rights to ensure the common good. Bearing this in mind, the last part of my presentation, because I only have 20 minutes, I will highlight 9 recommendations for improving digital social services based on our own experience under the lockdown in Spain. To be able to intervene digitally, we need to rethink our procedures, acquire more digital skills, to be aware of the problems of misinformation and polarization created by social networks in our digital societies. Good digital social work practices must also form part of the academic and professional debate and including in the public agenda. No? In this transition to a digital environment, social work training and intervention are undergoing a process of transformation. ICTs are changing the nature and practice for social intervention, while new digital procedures afford increased opportunities for research, therapies, intervention, and social networking on the field. We cannot not assess the needs of a population group or individuals, our own needs, without taking into account our online behavior, our interaction with others and with institutions, and our digital skills. Digital social networks and the internet are giving rise to new processes of inequality and exclusion, while old problems, such as pedophilia or bullying, are being redefined. Digitalization has changed social interactions and opened new areas of specialization such as the offline intervention or diagnosis based on the analysis of user behavior in social networks. And the ability to access, adapt, develop new knowledge and new social intervention methods using ICTs are now key challenges for the social welfare professions. Digitalization impacts all dimensions of society. User behavior and processes of social inclusion and exclusion have to be reconceptualized in the technological environment. And digital social work or e-social work, we can use both terms, can be defined as an area of specialization where the online digital environment is the object of analysis, evaluation, and social intervention. E-social work develops strategies to make technology more accessible, defines form of online participation, assesses needs, designs intervention dynamics, and promotes the autonomy of both users and professionals. The aim of e-social work is to better assist people in their real lives in a digital environment. In this regard, e-social work can be defined as the use of new information communication technologies in the field of social work and social services, in the field of social welfare, including online research, patient treatment, individual treatment, group and community dynamics, education, social work training, the monitoring of social services interventions and programs. From our experience in Spain, from our own experience in e-social work projects, we can initially differentiate two positions, professionals and users, and 6 stages. You can see that on the slide right now. The first stage, as you can see on the screen, involves diagnosis and active listening. In the second stage, problems are defined from different perspectives to cooperatively determine the operational objectives and establish the systemic framework of the problem under consideration, as well the environment, elements, and relationships involved. To this end, the co-design approach is essential from bringing together all the participants, all the stakeholders to define the problems, seek solutions, and develop strategies. The first stage involves designing solutions based on the previous steps, which are dynamic and not necessarily linear. That is, depending on how the entire process evolves, situational factors and the stakeholders' positions are revised and refined in a recursive way, starting again from the initial diagnosis and problems definition. The fourth stage responds to the why of the intervention. In the fifth stage, the intervention is evaluated focusing on the digital competencies of users and professionals, as well as any training needs that have been detected. The sixth stage involves proposal for improvement, the transfer of results, and the dissemination of practices with the aim of building trust among the users and professionals. This digitalization process, the digital social work, the digital social welfare, must be guided by a democratic approach. In this regard, digital social services should be designed according to 8 principles. 8 principles that I put you on the screen right now. In social work, the users and the problems are our principal concern, not the technology. The problem is not the technology. The problem is the exclusion process. The problem is poverty. The problem is that we are out of the normal life in many cases. No? Therefore, to successfully address issues arising either in the physical or digital environment, we must first define problems and subsequently develop the most effective technology to deal with them. We also need to increase the visibility of social services. Prevention is another key aspect of social services and essential for addressing problems early on. It's also important to simplify the procedures and optimize the processes. In addition, assistance and guidance services must be provided using ICTs and social networks. This can be achieved, for example, by geolocating social services centers, offering programs and delivering resources, and providing users guidance by means of gamification and artificial intelligence systems. It is also important to promote the digital competencies of social workers, users, and technicians, which can be done through training programs. I think that in this sense, the ICSW and all our NGOs have to deal with this new challenge. Training programs is a priority for all of us, not only at the university. Finally, social services must be redefined to protect digital rights and strengthen citizen exercise of these rights. The digital rights is a very important issue. It's a very important issue when we are talking about digital social work and when we are talking about ICTs. Well, in my last 2 minutes, because we have only 20 minutes and we are close to the end of my presentation. I don't want to steal your time in all the presentation that will come before my presentation. I think that the COVID-19 pandemic and global confinement has accelerated the process to implement digital social services and demands from us greater digital competence. Digital competence is now a worldwide challenge. In this sense, digital social work is already a priority in social work training, and digital skills have become an essential part of professional social work practice. And we have to take care of the digital gender divide too. No? ICTs and digitalization are here to stay. Perhaps the coronavirus will not be with us in the future, but ICTs and digitalization are here to stay. It is important to highlight the ethical problems involved in the use of technologies, and it is important to design more and better intervention strategies with our users. Social work and social welfare curricula also need to focus on improving the digital competencies and skills of students and professors and practitioners. And to end my presentation in my last 20 seconds, I will like to reiterate the real challenge we are facing. Without digital inclusion, there cannot be an inclusive social welfare. Without digital inclusion, it's impossible to have inclusive democracy, because we live in a digital society. Without digital inclusion, it's impossible to have a digital democracy. And this is our challenge, from my point of view, in the 21st century. Thank you.
Hello. um, I'm Youngran Park, and I'm very honored to be a part of this very important seminar today. And I would like to share what's going on in Korea in the context of digital transformation in the field of social welfare. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Perfect.
thank you. All right, so my presentation is divided into 4 parts. I'd like to give you a little bit of backgrounds of what's going on in Korea and policy trends and ICT applications in social welfare fields in Korea and some of the future challenges that we are facing at this point. So I'm sure many of you know where Korea is. I have never been to Spain or many of the countries that they are presented today, but you can see the Republic of Korea, South Korea on the map. And recently, Korea got much attention all around the world because of this very special movie about an old lady and the family. And we are also well known for electronics development related to Samsung and LG and other companies, big companies. So, but as you know, that Korea has gone through very drastic changes over the last more than half a decade. So right after the Korean War, as you all know, Korea was a very poor country, but over the past 70 years, we have gone through drastic changes in economic development. But I would like to highlight today about the social security system that we have been building over the past few decades. And as the Korean baby boomers, which is a huge group of the population, they were mostly born right after the Korean War, and now they're entering the age of the senior citizens. And in the 1970s and 80s, we went through what's called the miracle of the Han River, and also labor movement and democratization movement. In 1990s was very important because we became a member of the OECD in 1996. And we also established the Social Security Act in 1995. And KOICA, which is an ODA organization, was established in 1991. So Korea became one of the very rare countries where we were the recipients of the ODA to the donor country. So 1990s, I think it was very significant in terms of the Korean history. And in the 2000s, the Korea went through industrial development, and ICT industry was a very big part of our economic share, and semiconductor development and other exports, they increased dramatically for the last 2 decades. And in 2016, this big event of Google DeepMind, which is a challenge match between AlphaGo and our very famous Go player, was held in Seoul, Korea. And that event also got big attention from the public, and everybody got interested in this artificial intelligence and fourth industrial revolution as well. And ever since then, now we are really into fast aging era of our social population changes. And we are really into what's called smart healthcare, smart cities, smart homes, and smart welfare as well. So I just wanted to give you a background information about what's going on in our society. And one of the key issues is how to care for all these population who are rapidly aging, and we have very low fertility rate at this point, which is the lowest among the OECD countries. So when we talk about these issues of population aging, we are also facing these the phenomena where people with disabilities, they're also aging as well. So people who are registered as with disabilities, almost 50% of they are 65 and over. So overall, the issue of care is very important in Korea and aging all over the world. So I just wanted to show you the baby boomers who were born in the 1960s. They will be a major portion of the population as time goes by. And people, especially over 85 years of age, they will make up a quite large group of people who are over 65. So we are very concerned about the issue of aging in Korea. And I happen to study gerontological social work, so I'm a little bit biased today in today's presentation. But so as I mentioned, we are very interested in ICT and AI and all this fourth industrial technology. And one of the reasons is that we are worried about lack of resources for care. And also there is a big gap between the world of Industry 4.0 and the realities of the social service fields, because many of our agencies, they're still struggling with paperwork. So we have to focus on the effectiveness of efficiency of service delivery in this era of Industry 4.0. So that's sort of the background of my presentation. And this is a diagram that I charted in about 7 years ago in one of my projects. And I have a conceptual framework for Smart Senior Center, which I will try to explain a little bit later on. So that's why we are really into this topic of ICT and digital transformation. And as I mentioned, so after the AlphaGo game, the government came up with what's called the iKorea 4.0, where they're really putting a lot of resources into what's called the DNA, data, artificial intelligence, and networking. So the government has a big plan, and along with this COVID-19, they came up with Korean New Deal, and Digital New Deal is part of the big government projects. So smart care, online services, digital services, digital therapeutics, robots and AIs, they're all over in government projects and in different settings. And also we are really focusing on what's called the community-based care at this point, and person-centered integrated service delivery has become a big topic in Korea. So digitalization of these resources and data is also very important in Korea at this point. So new and increasing interest in digital transformation of social services at this point. And we have many events going on with this topic. And in February, we also had this inclusive welfare system with the role of ICT provided by the ICSW in Korea. And I'm personally involved in what's called the Geron technology in Korea. So so I work as the vice president of the ISG, and we have a Korean chapter. And so this Geron technology is an important part. People are interested nowadays, and hopefully maybe you can come to Korea next year to discuss on this issue of digital divide, global aging, and the relationship between digital transformation, SDGs as well, because the topic of next conference is Geron technology for all. So ICT applications in social welfare in Korea, I would like to just make a few, show you a few cases, examples or best practices right now in Korea. And I just wanted to mention this framework because we have to, there are so many things going on in Korea right now, and I'm trying to really see how we can conceptualize this phenomena and maybe try to bring more resources into the service delivery system at this point. So in terms of the legal framework for social welfare in Korea, we have Basic Act on Social Security, which was first established in 1995, but we had a major amendment in 2012. And basically, we have social insurance, public assistance, and social services, and we are trying to provide lifelong safety net for all in Korean society. And along with the Social Security Act, we have another act on social welfare, And the Act on Social Welfare covers different target groups and different service delivery systems. And there are numerous agencies and facilities, social workers, care service providers within this framework, policy framework. But one thing in Korea is that this technology is named differently depending on which field you're working on. So when we are talking about ICT in social welfare practice, some people call it medical technology, some people rehabilitation technology, or assistive technology, or able technology. And right now, there's also terminology called welfare technology and age tech and general technology. So we have to think about ICT for whom, ICT for what problems, and who are the users, and try to categorize this ICT by users, objectives, and functions as well. So I would like to say that we have different approaches and models, and I like to just show you different models in the public sectors and private sectors. In the public sectors, Korean Social Security Information Service is a big project in Korea where they have all the big data center for public benefits and social service clients data as well. So they have a huge data set that's accumulated in this agency since 2009, and everything is done online, especially in the public benefits sector. So you can see all these different agencies connected together. I couldn't translate every words on this slide. And another public model project is called Emergency Safety Services for Low-Income Lone Elders and Severely Disabled. So since 2008, the Korean government started working on what's called the U-Care project. And they have grown into a big project covering almost 900,000 people, individuals who are living alone and poor. So we have these systems, sensors and monitors, speakers, which provide music information to people living alone, and emergency touch gateway as well. So this is sort of public system safeguarding the people who are living by themselves, and there are community caregivers who are also providing services within this system. We have what's called the National Rehabilitation Center, and they used to only work on technology for disabled people, but they're also nowadays interested in people, older people as well. So rehabilitation technology is meeting general technology since 2018, and care robot projects for elder care is funded by the government, and they're trying to develop different machines at this point. The National Rehabilitation Center also provides open space and platform for all R&D and manufacturing and end users as well. So people can go and experience different technologies, and also ask them to create different technologies that for their own use as well. So this is sort of a new project going on. And some of the local governments, they have big showcases, and this is one of the senior complex where people can go and experience different technologies as well. And this is the local public health centers and some of the dementia prevention services where they're starting to use these tablets and robots, and this is also robot, social robot as well. So this is sort of the new picture of what's going on. And the local senior centers, they have these machines, new machines where older people can utilize, and data are being gathered as well. So these are really exciting functional games that people like to play with their colleagues. But even though we have these new programs in the field, digital divide is one of major problems that we discovered especially during COVID-19. So not many people have accessibility to this, not yet. So that's sort of the public sector that I just showed you. And in the private sectors, there are different companies working on CSR projects and business models. So they have different AI speakers, platforms created, apps created so that they could be utilized in the social service sectors as well. And this is one of the newest model that just opened. They're trying to teach senior citizens how to use these machines to order coffee and these robots to interact with. So that's sort of the social service sector. In the healthcare sector, we have far more advanced technologies and utilization going on at this point, and smart mobile healthcare is becoming more present in everyday life for many of the Korean citizens. So you could see that we are still in the early stage in social services with different approaches and models. Some of the issues is that we have a big gap between medical care and social care in terms of research and development, resources and manpower. We have many projects, but they're a little bit segregated. So there is a lack of partnership or shared platform yet. There are many legal barriers across fields. Providers-driven projects, even though they make these projects, they are not really very much client-oriented yet. And limited accessibility and purchasing power is another big issue. A lack of evidence-based practice. We are gathering small and big data, but we haven't been able to analyze them all, and theory building is still limited in utilizing ICT in social work practice. So also a lack of ICT savvy practitioners is another issue that we are all facing. So digital transformation, as the previous speaker mentioned, is something that that's happening and is for the future. There's no way that we can go back. So I would like to just share with you three different levels of the issues that we could talk about. So the first macro level, I would like to suggest that we need a more sustainable ecosystem for ICT-based social service delivery system. And we need to look into legal instruments, policy directions, social welfare benefits needs to be redesigned. Funding mechanisms and partnership among the stakeholders is critical in creating this ecosystem. And I would really like to advocate for affirmative actions for social care sectors. And we need to think about who are funding these ICT developments, and there are central government, local business, research institutes, and different universities all involved. And hopefully we will be able to work together more in the future. In terms of the meso or organizational level, we have to think about how to reconstruct and transform social service organizations. So digital transformation of organizations need planning. We need to redesign and reconstruct the data and information management system, and digital literacy and capacity building of service providers are critical, as mentioned by all speakers throughout this conference. So in my university, we have a special training program which is called WellTech Convergence Curriculum. Social workers, they are learning coding in their first grade, and we are trying to teach social workers how to work with these digital technologies, because as you can see, the clients and between technology and client, there needs to be somebody who are really mediating the utilization. So training new types of workers is critical in Korea as well. In terms of the micro level, empowerment of the service users and quality improvement of services is very important. So accessibility, cost, IT environment, digital literacy, everybody has been talking about this issue. So we also need to address practical and strategic needs of service users and continue to work on evidence-based smart interventions as well. So there's many projects in Korea where we are trying to build service design models for different practice settings utilizing this digital technology. So when I talk about digital transformation, I really like to share this picture with the audience, because when we are talking about transformation, it's transforming, which is something drastically different. So I just like to finish my presentation with this slide where I like to really emphasize that it is important that we work together towards the goal of the social development. And lately there is a dialogue on digital rights, our human rights. So I think we need to together imagine what the future would look like with all this technology. And so we need to share the vision, but political will is very important, and leadership as well, and of course solidarity as well. So that's what's going on in Korea, and this is the end of my presentation.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Wanshan Lin, Wendy. It's my honor, I have to say, to present in this international conference. First of all, I would like to thanks for everyone to give me the chance to present here. I'm going to present on behalf of the National Taiwan University Children and Family Research Center and National Cheng Kung University in Taiwan. And my topic is about cases of ICT applications in Taiwan for smart living and social welfare. Right, first of all, I would like to introduce myself a little bit. I actually work on IT for years, and but I collaboratively work with National Taiwan University Research Center for a number of years. And we're trying to work on the prevention of the usage of substance, and a particular interest in tackle the problem of internet addiction for adolescents and college students. And so today I mainly will talk about the ICT applications in Taiwan, and also to talk about this longitudinal research program, which is a planned intervention we have worked on for a number of years. Here is my outline for this slot of the presentation. First of all, I will talk about digitalization of society and cases. I divide that, particularly select two cases. One is the public e-services, which is about a light chatbot of face mask supply. As you might be aware that there are very shortage supply of face mask in many areas during the COVID-19 pandemic time, and the same in Taiwan. And this is applications not only provided by the government, but we empower the citizens to work together. So it's one of quite successful, and I think it's the first of the kind, which we empower all the citizens to work together, also to provide, we call it open data from the government, also the supplier of the face masks during the pandemic time. So this is referring as the public e-services, but it actually has many different meanings, because we're trying to engage with the society and all the members together to work on to provide effective online services for the public. And the second part of my presentation, we'll talk about this. This is a research program running by the research center at the Taiwan University, supervised by the Professor Feng. I think she's online. And this research program have started a number of years ago. Even I haven't really joined, I just lately joined. But we have trying to work on providing the intervention, also to work providing this well-developed training program for the young pupils grade from 5 to 6 up to 12, grades 12. So we call it as a positive interpersonal life orientation training program. In short, we use pilot to denote this program. So I'm talking about the progresses. Also, there's the ongoing research analyst program undergoing to trying to analyze the effectiveness of this program. And the reason why we're doing that is because at most of the ICT relevant study, we only mainly will focus on the positive manner of adopting the technology in human life. Especially during the COVID-19 pandemic time, because citizens eager to get access to the public information, and the same thing happens on the school. Although many schools have been locked down or been closed down, and recently Taiwan also encountered need to close down because some cases come out. So people, as young pupils, has been kept at home and to have homeschooling. And previous time we work on the internet or game addiction prevention. And now we're trying to help them to harness the advantage of the technology for self-education. So the direction is very different, also the direction of the research. Anyhow, this program have run since before the pandemic time, but we now see there's a big impact and very positive impact, especially during after the pandemic time, because we're trying to help the young people to know how to make good use of the ICT technology for their life, for their social relationship, for their education. So in turn, this program, why we choose to talk about this program is we think that although ICT really help our life, but the main thing is still that in the point of the social welfare, we need to provide the guidance, especially our young pupils, to know how to make use of that ICT technology in their life. And when the time they grow up, they know that how to make use of that, so they can bring more, by utilizing ICT technology, can bring more benefit for their life, and in turn to help our society be better. Okay, and so this is come to my first part, digitalization of the society. In Taiwan, we have the National Development Council. They have worked on the digital inclusion for long years. So basically what they do is that they investigate a number of issues. For example, I list in the second point, digital divide. So mainly they do the polls annually. They release every year the reports to document how percentage of the population they know how to use ICT technology. And also they trying to team up with local government to trying to provide a training program. So for the adults as well as the young citizens. The same as the previous speaker, we're also facing very serious problem of the aging population as well as low birth rate. So by reading and working on collecting the data to know how well our citizens know how to make use of the ICT technology, it can help us to know that those minority groups of the citizen, how we can help them. For example, how they can set up their online stores if they have very limited income. And we do also understand that during the pandemic time, many citizens face a hardship because maybe they lose their job and their income has been irregular. So this is one of the topics that we work for long years. Other issues including they care about the information literacy, as the previous speaker also pointed out. And the National Development Council, they also care about the minority group, or we refer it, those are the Taiwanese new immigrants, because they might not really been born as a local citizen, and they, by some other reason or many different reasons, for example, marriage or the work, they come to Taiwan to stay, and they need time, also the skills to have the better life in here. So also that they investigate these issues. Others like online citizenship and online behavior in Taiwan we also run like the e-voting, means that for some public matter, citizen can share their opinion or make some votes. Although I do understand that some results from the online e-voting hasn't been really put into practice because the policy not really go to their direction. But by offering the citizen this opportunity to participate and show that their will or their opinions is one of the way to engage them into a society. Sorry about that. Okay, I come back to this. And also the fourth point, the digitalization of cities and counties is also relevant to like the development of the smart nations and smart cities in Taiwan. Okay, so this comes to the first case I would like to talk about as just addressed earlier. This is a public e-service. I refer it as a live chat bot of face mask supply. And it happens in Taiwan, and I think also maybe it's happened in many different places, because in the early era last year, during the beginning of the pandemic time, people rush to the pharmacy to buy the face mask. And they worry that they might not really have enough supply to wear and to protect themselves and their family member. So this is one of the e-services which we developed and still very successful. And one of the main reasons of its successful and accurate of the information is because we engage the citizen. And many developers of this application are not only the public servants, they are the normal citizens in the society. So from different regions and different counties, many different separate pharmacies, because in Taiwan we only issue the permit to in the pharmacy to sell the face mask in the first beginning of the pandemic time. When the time we restrict number of the supply of face masks. Now it's a different situation now. Anyhow, until today, the system's running, and I check the information is still available, and all the data has been kept real time. And it's a we call it the location-based services, which is one of case to harness the advantage of the ICT and we call it artificial intelligence to provide the most updated and accurate information for citizens to get use. Okay, and then because of time, I move to the second part of the application, and also it's a research program. Okay. So pilot, which is a research program conducted by the National Taiwan University Children and Family Research Center, sponsored by CTBC Charity Foundation. This program has been started in 2013, and it covers a series of training programs for enhancing positive ability in dealing with stress, social skills, making sound decision. We referring as a stop, think, go model, and communications, right use of substance. In that case, in the early version that we only talk about is cigarette use. We're trying to kind of assist the young pupils age of 11 to 12 to talk about that, how they interpret those public information or about like cigarette promotion or the marketing information, and we try to give them the right information for enhancing their decision-making process, or to say no to their peers, not to really engage to a wrong substance usage. And this is a stop, think, go handout. Actually, we issue is a full package of for two versions. One is for teachers, one is for pupils. And in we also revised that after the COVID-19 pandemic time. And this is the second formal versions of a pilot program released based on the previous 6 types of amendments. And this pilot program was carried out in many regions in Taiwan, like in North City, Taipei, Keelung, Taoyuan. It assists adolescents under 18 to adapt the changes of the society, especially there's so many information they can go online to read. They might not be able to tell what is right, what is wrong. And we try to help them and to deal with the stress and mindful issues, especially during the pandemic time. And this is also is a research program, is progressing. We haven't have the full result yet because we're still undertaking the analyzing process. And we have a number of brilliant experts and professors who's in the social welfare area come together, we think out to work together. And we're trying to end at investigating the empirical evidence of the effectiveness of this program on stress handle and adolescent resilience. And the early results are promising, and it reveals that those adolescents who were involved in this pilot intervention program have improved the level of resilience and less intention of problematic behavior. Okay, so finally, this is my references because of time, but I really hope, really enjoy the time to share the cases surrounding Taiwan and during this pandemic time. And I wish all the participants have a very good experience tonight because it's 7 o'clock in Taiwan.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Thanks for all. I would like first to thank ICSW and especially the president of the MENA region, Dr. Garawi, who gave me the opportunity to speak today. Because I'm more of an IT guy. I used to be a professor of artificial intelligence at the university. So I will speak from a very IT side, but with impact on social, of course. Well, I'll try to share. Oops, sorry. The Zoom has not the authorization to share my screen. I will just fix this if you allow me. 2 minutes. Password. Okay, that's it. Do you see my screen?
No, not yet. Not yet.
No. Voila. Oh, come on. Sorry. This is. We were talking about security a few slides ago. With Hong Kong, this is over-secured system. Voila. It should be okay now. So, voila. Okay, is it okay now?
Okay, perfect, perfect.
Oops. I have it on the full screen. Okay. I hope everything is okay.
Yes, yes, it is.
Well, so I would like to talk about the subject, which is ICT for social inclusion, and start really with oops, what's going on? Voilà. So I would like to talk about what we see in our country and in many countries is that you have social exclusion through social media and through ICT, because we have not been educated in a way where ICT and social media is the world of the youth today. And what to do to avoid this, and I will try to share with you some reflections and some experience that we had here in Morocco. So I would like to start with something which is which seems to be very simple, but which is not. Words. Inclusion starts with words. Today, everyone around not the table, but everyone in this session knows what is chat, what is bot, what is internet. When we started the internet a few years ago, well, 25 years ago, in fact, internet was an unknown word, and we need words to describe new things. You know chat, but maybe you don't know UX, which is very trendy word, which is user experience. We don't talk about how people behave with computer, but how they have an experience with their computer or their smartphone. There is something else that is even less known, which is BYOD. BYOD is bring your own device, because we noticed today that people have an emotional relationship with their computer or with their smartphone. So when you go to a new job or a new environment, if they force you to use the computer they use or the smartphone they use, people feel bad and sad not to be able to use the device they used to. In fact, since words describe the world where we live, we have to agree on words before anything else. And if you allow me, I have 4 items that are very important and that I try to repeat in each speech. I'm sorry for those who already heard that, but it's very important. The first thing is that never use new when you are talking about ICT. In Morocco, internet is available since '93. So it's more than 25 years ago, quarter of a century. It's very old, it's not new. And as soon as you are talking about new thing, automatically people are retracting because they want to stay safe in the old world, and they don't want to go to a new thing because it will force them to have to make efforts. So it's not new, don't talk about new. Same thing about future. Future means that we have time to integrate this world, which is not the case. Everybody knows that today, if you are not connected, you don't live, or almost. We don't have time anymore. We have to step into the technology, and it's even too late. The third word, which is even more dangerous, speaking of inclusion, is virtual. As soon as you are talking about a virtual world, virtual tools, virtual meetings, we are not doing today a virtual meeting. It's a real meeting, but through digital means. So this virtual world, when we're talking about virtual things to any decision maker, in his brain and in his head, virtual is not real. So he doesn't have to take care about it. And this is the case in many times and in many places. And at last, this is something that me as a computer guy, I heard a lot. Computerization is totally different from digitization. Computerization is just put things we use to work with on a computer, whereas digitization is more of a global process integrating not only computer software, but also people and users and communities. So it's totally different. Once again, in many cases, people are talking about digitization where doing only computerization. It's the case in many examples in the e-gov stuff. Well, let's step into the social inclusion. Social inclusion is held by many pillars, but one of the pillars today is definitely digital inclusion. So I will focus on that. And digital inclusion, generally, I heard a lot of speeches last week and today. And digital inclusion, I think that the common approach is that digital inclusion, you have two main fields: the hardware, physical access. If you are not connected, you cannot be included in any way. So network access and equipment availability are key for that. On the other hand, you have the software, which is the brain of the people who are using this physical access. It's literacy. But when I talk about literacy, it's literally literacy. People who can't read or can't write have problems in accessing, of course, but not only digital literacy, even literacy. And the equipment users still, of course, the equipment is easier and easier today to use, but still, when I'm talking about my mother, who is 85, it took her 4 years to understand how WhatsApp works, and now she's using it. But it took a lot of time, and it's really hard to step into, especially for elderly people, just as has been said in other presentations. Well, let's step into the Moroccan case, and I will have one observation and two examples. The observation is about the digital access, and the examples are about possible social impact of a digital action and not a virtual action. And the wonderful tool, digital is a wonderful tool when it's wisely used, and this will be a second example. So talking about digital access, in Morocco, we are lucky to have a really broad access throughout the country for internet, at least on mobile. And you see these statistics that are 2 years ago, unfortunately, and 2020 have not been published yet, but soon. You see that the usage of ICT is the usage of internet is very important. It is more than 80% for most of the population, and clearly starting at 40 years old, which is old for the new tech. Starting at 40 years old, there is a drop of the usage. There is a clear generation gap. This part of the statistics is about 1/3 of the population, and this part is about 2/3. And Morocco is a very young country where young people are very numerous. There is one thing about access that is new and that has been seen during the COVID crisis, is the cost of intensive use, which was not previewed before. Access is not very expensive in Morocco to the internet. The gigabyte is not very expensive, but now when you have remote education with video conferencing, with what we are doing today, then the costs rise very rapidly. using 5-10 gigs per month is affordable for an average Moroccan citizen. But when you go more than that, it rises very rapidly, and this cost has not been seen before. Well, there is always a cost matter, of course, but it was not with this importance before seen before the COVID. Well, we were talking just before starting about gender issue. The gender issue in Morocco is very is various. You see that mobile men and women usage is about the same. The smartphone usage is more with the men than women, but the difference is not that important. I will say the internet use there is still a difference about 8% of the population, but when we go to the social network use from internet users, it's more in the women's side than in the men's side. So access as such is not as important as an important issue for gender equality. One first example is oops, sorry, I was not on the right. Well, voila. Sorry, I was stepping this slide. So you see that gender, those are the figures for gender issue. Well, one important thing is that 2 years ago or 3 years ago, there was a boycott action against three brands in Morocco. And Danone that you know, but Ifriqiya is a gas provider, and Sidi Ali is a water, mineral water company. There was a boycott for those three brands. I will not go to the reasons. I'm just studying the impact. So it started on social networks. There was a call for boycott, and it worked very well. It was 100% digital action, not virtual. This is very important, and I will come back to it later. It was 100% digital action, and it was followed by a lot of people, by millions of people, in fact, and it was more successful than any political or social action. This shows clearly the impact of social media and being in social media for any social action. The first reactions from the brands and even from the government were totally ineffective, because the reactions were reactions thought in the normal physical world and not in the digital world. So even how to discuss, when you have a strike in a plant or in a company, you can sit with the unions and talk, and you have normal procedures that are very well known for decades and even centuries. For social action on the net by people you don't know, in fact, because you know that people are totally unknown on the net, you don't know how to react, and the reactions were ineffective. And the problem is that the economic and social consequences were very, very important, with people losing their jobs, with a lot of money, of course, lost. And the impact was with Central Danone especially, and the impact was on more than 300,000 farmers who were supplying the company with milk. That they all had a big impact. So social action on the net is not virtual first, it's a real action. And it's important to step into this world for the future, not the future, for today and before the future. Well, on the other hand, there was a wonderful thing about the COVID vaccination campaign. First of all, the decision has been done that it will be for all population as soon as possible, of course, and free for all. So this was the problem that was up, and the only solution that has been designed by the government was to step into the digital, because there is no way to touch all the population as soon as possible and to have the lowest cost possible to do that in all means. So it was really done a great way, because it was well designed because the information was broadly spread all around all the means, digital through web and social media, but also traditional. Never forget that traditional still exists through TV, radio, and newspapers. Same thing for registration. It can be done through the web, through SMS, or even for people who don't know how to use this, even if they are very few in terms of families and not in terms of individuals, physical on-site. All the sites where the vaccine was given were open to register. And then the support, the same. The support was through web, through social media, through telephone, and physical on-site. So for me, it was a wonderfully designed campaign, because the digital was not focused. This is what I'm calling digital campaign and not computerized campaign. Digital tools were used, and they were in the heart of the whole system, but not to forget anyone, everything has been used. Well, and the result was, of course, for maybe I think that it's the first time in Morocco where the government was hailed by everybody for this action. It was really very professional. It was the same process for all, taking care of everyone. Talking about inclusion, it was highly inclusive. And I think that today you cannot meet any Moroccan or even a citizen from abroad that lives in Morocco, because they were also covered by this campaign, saying that this was not good. It was really really highly inclusive and very impressive. So what's next? This is important. In Morocco, there are two projects that I want to focus on rapidly. Is first the Unified Social Record. The Unified Social Record is a digitized record where all citizens who wants, it's on a voluntary basis, who wants to be registered will be registered with comprehensive data to provide all the social programs data about citizens who can step into those programs. It will increase the impact of social programs, because those programs will be targeted to the right people, and then will be much more efficient. And this has been launched 2 years ago. Unfortunately, in the meantime, there was the COVID crisis. The COVID, through the campaign I just described, stepped into this Unified Social Record scheme, but now it will be in fact generalized for every social program. The second thing is that at the Social, Economic, and Environmental Council, we started citizen contribution through a website. It will be open next month, and it will be open to all to collect ideas, proposals, and anything that has impact on economic, social, or environmental subjects. And it will allow discuss on ongoing studies that are held by the council, and this will be probably the wide open spread citizen contribution platform in the country. To summarize, if we go to the traditional aspects, the social relations were organized around really very normal entities. The family is the heart, the core, and then you have the big family, the district, the communities, then the city, then the country, then the rest of the world. And we all were educated through this model. The problem is that today the model is totally different. The whole world is open through digital access, and you don't know what's the core, and you may have many cores. The family may be or may not be the one of the cores, but you have the friends and even friends that you never met outside the digital environment. So this raises a big problem. We have a way of life issue. This is why it has been said by many other speakers. We have a way of life issue. We have, in one side, the people that are living beside the network. And in the other side, you have people that are living the network, inside it. They are feeling it, they are eating it, they are sleeping it. So, and the problem is that many decision makers are in the people who are living beside the network. So generally, they have a wrong design of what should be a digitally inclusive environment. So how to avoid inclusion? One of the first schemes I showed you is this one. It's the classic approach that we were talking about. But in fact, a more realistic approach is the usual approach, but we have to add an appropriation by decision makers. If decision makers do not really feel that it is so important, so important, wrong decisions will be made. And I have seen in my life a lot of wrong decisions made just because people don't understand what is digital environment. So we have to be sure that decision makers will get into this world. It's more than only communication. Now, communication is not enough by experience. Maybe education, but education is hard for people that are 40 more years. But I think that one of the solutions, but it's really an open question, one of the solutions is to delegate to the right people, the right owners. It has been done in some countries and it works. In Morocco, it has been done yet. I hope that in the near future, younger people will have the responsibility of going into the digital environment to make it more inclusive in terms of global digital, not only access. Thank you very much. I'm sorry I have taken a few seconds more than the time that was allowed. Thank you very much.
Hello, can you hear me?
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay. I'm Marcia Lopes from Brazil. Thank you very much for the invitation to be here today and talk about information and communication technologies and unified social assistance systems, SUAS, right to social inclusion. I want to congratulate the organizers of the seminar. So now I will start my presentation. Here is a map of Brazil and some basic informations like the population, area, GDP, AGDA, and federative structure. In Brazil, the legal framework for public policies is the Federal Constitution of 1988, which defines the guidelines and establishes the responsibilities of the states involving the federal government, 26 states, the federal district, and the 5,570 Brazilian municipalities to structure and offer public services to the population. We have 3 guidelines of our public policies: universal access to rights, political and administrative decentralization, and participation of community. What is the social assistance policy? For the first time, social assistance is inserted in the Constitution as a public state policy. Citizens' right and state duty, which must be offered to all Brazilians who need it. It forms the tripod of security together with health and social security. As of 2004, the National Social Assistance Policy is organized by a unified system called SUAS, decentralized, regulated, and present in all Brazilian states and municipalities, with the offer of social assistance, benefits, and services by a government and no government network. And the Ministry of Social Development and Fights Against Hunger created a National Secretary for Evaluation and Information Management that provided the basis for the entire SUAS information and communication system in Brazil. The SUAS systems is organized in benefits and services. The benefits are monthly income benefit, Bolsa Família program that attend 14 million families, and the elderly and people with disabilities that attend 5 million people. Eventual benefits, birth or death assistance, temporary material support for people in situation of vulnerability, and the social assistance services according to the needs of family and community are 9,000 CRAS, Reference Center for Social Assistance, Prevention and Guidance, 30,000 CREAS, Specialized Social Assistance Center, Protection and Care for Victims of Violence, the elderly, rural and traditional communities. A Street Population Center, Attention, Protection, and Coexistence for Street Population. Reception units, shelters, community centers, training spaces for SUAS users as needed. The social assistance policy has 3 functions: basic and special social protection, defense and access to rights, and social of citizenship and belonging. Thank you very much.
오늘 포럼을 통해 사회적 포용과 복지를 위한 ICT의 역할에 대해 많이 배웠습니다. 오늘 포럼 영상은 향후 한국사회복지협의회 유튜브 공식 채널인 나눔 채널 공감에 업로드됩니다. 많은 시청과 좋아요 부탁드립니다. 이상으로 국제사회서비스 프로젝트 2차 포럼을 마치겠습니다. 향후 진행하는 SDGs 국제포럼에도 많은 관심 부탁드립니다. 9월에 다시 찾아뵙겠습니다. 감사합니다.